How you doing, everybody? This is one of the most difficult conversations I think I've ever had with anybody. Um, you're going to be hearing from an anonymous source who's still in the United States Navy. He requested to remain anonymous, but he agreed to come on the show. Um, to those who he served with, he was a leader. There was times where he struggled with saying the right thing, doing the right thing, but he always tried his best, and it was pretty apparent for anybody to see that. Um, he has definitely gone through some of the most difficult things that you could go through. Uh, Finding out that your partner's not going to be with you anymore mid deployment, and tarnishing your household name at the same time is going to be one of the most difficult things I've ever. It is the most difficult thing I had to deal with on deployment, was seeing that right in front of me. Um, just being there to witness this strong person, strong leader, struggle to that capacity. He affected me in so many ways during the United States Navy, and unfortunately, parts of his service are fuck.
Are you thinking about making a podcast? Spotify has a platform that lets you make one, and if I can figure it out, you definitely can too. You can create your own content all in one place for free with zero hangups and even earn money as soon as you get started. Spotify lets you record and edit episodes from your phone or computer so you can go mobile, just like I enjoy to do. My favorite thing about it is that you can create video episodes if you wish and upload them to wherever podcasts are heard. You can even set up subscriptions, or if you're like me, listener support options for listeners to help you grow. I 10 out of 10 recommend the Spotify for Podcasters app. Or, why don't you just step over to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your own podcast.
The man that I met grew, and you didn't just grow up, you grew sideways, you grew laterally. You adapted to every situation that you were working with and every sailor that you're working with. You didn't treat people like a group. You treated people as individuals, and that was the reason why you had gained my respect, and the reason why there was nothing I wouldn't do to make sure that you were being taken care of.
Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate that. I get a lot of kind words said to me, and it's every time I get it, it's a huge shock, because I wish I was a more egotistical guy, but I'm just not.
Right.
I'm never gonna be able to be like, oh yeah, good for me. Like I felt weird every time getting advanced. Always feel weird with everything. So it's always
and that's the reason why you've always earned it. That's why you've always deserved it, because you never felt entitled. You didn't feel like just because you did one or two or even 100 things, you never felt like it was something that you were owed. It was, you were happy doing the job. You weren't chasing rank. You were doing it because you loved the job. Yeah. And the sailors, of course.
And the people. I've met so many. I've met a kid from Chicago who lost 5 friends in one weekend in middle school in front of him, getting shot in front of him, and his sister too was one of those 5. I've met a person who didn't speak any English and joined the Navy because they wanted to be a good human being and provide for their family and be a good citizen and to represent their country and their family name. I've met people who lost everything in a moment, and met people who gained everything in a moment. I've seen people who got a high five in life, is what I call it, but they advanced, or they met a mentor who supported them, and that's all they needed to not be a real piece of shit. And I think that's what's so interesting to me about the Navy, is because each and everybody can play a certain role, and when you see somebody really doing it, it just shines amongst everybody, because a lot of people in the Navy are pretty negative, just completely negative. They're pissed off they signed up, and they signed up, not me. So that's just always been a thing. Oh, Jesus Christ. So I met you came on and you started running the joint. What was it like the first time you got introduced to the rowdy ass 2nd Division?
I had previously worked on a aircraft carrier before, and I can honestly tell you that it was the worst command I'd ever served under. When we dealt with Fukushima, when we were dealing with cycles, workups, stand downs, DPS, PS, the whole shebang, everything that we were doing, the whole command just, it left a horrible taste in my mouth. And it's apparently it's a stigma that stayed with that command. So when I got orders to report there, I'll be honest, I was hesitant. I was worried. I was scared because I had a marriage that was already on the rocks. That was, I was dealing with a lot of confrontation at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had an idea of what I was going to have to walk into when I got to the new command while it was deployed, of all places.
Which is the worst.
Which is not, yeah, because you don't get a chance to build that rapport, that esprit de corps with people that you accomplished, you earned it, you're there for a reason, and you kind of understand each other's nuances and how if somebody is struggling, what to look for. You don't have to have them tell you. What the signs are. So it was daunting, to be completely honest. But the one of the proudest, actually, I'm going to say the second proudest moment in my naval career was reporting on board that ship, without a doubt. That command pre-swap was my second favorite command my entire career. That's 22 years of speaking that. I walked into the Navy when I walked on board that ship.
Awesome, man. I love that.
And that's what I had been missing since my first command. And I loved it. It was an absolute blast. I loved working with the people. I remember working with Chief Brontes at the time. Absolutely amazing mentor, complete professional, and just motivating, inspirational person who had stumbled but didn't ever let that get to him. He turned it into a positive. He turned it into a training opportunity, and it was just fantastic. And then working with sailors working with sailors that actually earned their position. Mm-hmm. That was something I had not seen in such a long time. So yeah, honestly,
Chief did not let anybody do anything if they were not right. He would, I would call him in this might sound, for sensitive people listening, this might sound horrible, but he was like the super efficient, non-negative Nazi of perfection at your job. He wanted you to be the perfect version of you, and he would not let anybody get in the way of that. Oh God.
Absolutely. He saw the type of person you could be. He didn't see the man or the woman, or the sailor, I should say, standing in front of him. He saw the potential, and he fostered that. He threw gasoline on the fire of that motivation for that sailor. And that was one of the things that I was proud to say that I got a chance to experience, to see, to remind me of what a leader should and could be.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that guy so much, and I love you as well. And it was always hard for me as a person who hadn't experienced positive leadership. I never, other than football and sports, I had a lot of role models who were drug dealers and killers, and they were members of my literal family. And for me to enter an environment where you have the potential to do something positive that's not going to get you in trouble, you don't have to worry about authoritarian. I was very anti-authority, and I think that a lot of people make that mistake coming in the Navy, because the police aren't there anymore. The government's not there anymore. You are completely surrounded by people who were just in your shoes one day. They walk on the ship and they're dressed blues or dressed whites if it's a really bad situation, and they got the sea bag and they thought they could have all this space inside their rack, and they showed up and they have no rank, and they just like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to this giant majestic metal piece of metal that's going to shake and move when it goes fast. And everyone around you was standing in those shoes once, and it's a humbling experience to some, but other people, they get kind of jaded and they're like, oh yeah, well, this chief said this to me. Well, you got to listen, because he used to be in your shoes. So just do what the fuck he says. You're going to be all right.
I think everybody has a certain idea, whether it's from watching a movie or having a family member, or I've done 2 tours in recruiting, and I've had legal representation. I won't specify what kind, but I've had legal representation who've contacted me and like, hey, look, this is like this kid's last chance, this and any other thing. So whatever the reason was, people came in with a certain ideal of what they were getting into. Boot camp was that reset to get you out of that civilian mindset. You got to your first command, and that's what you were working off of. You still had your core beliefs, you still had your core identity of, this is where I came from, this is who I was, and this is who I am and who I could become. And a lot of people came in with some good work ethic that you could tell there was, even if they didn't have a job before, like myself. You could tell some of them were 20 years old, still coming out of their mom and dad's basement, moving out of the mom and dad's house, or, like you were saying, they're authoritative. And, they got that gut check in boot camp and they got to their first command, and it is humbling.
It definitely is. I've had a lot of humbling experiences in the Navy. I've had a lot of them were coated with fear. I remember one of my favorite memories is getting knocked about 15 feet back and about 12 feet down. I think it was, like, I measured it afterwards, and lower in upper 21 or in middle 21 to lower 21, by the tubes. They pulled the tubes, they got snagged,
The hoses
smacked me. The hoses smacked me like a giant
Yeah.
black dick and knocked me back like all these feet. And I hit my back so hard on the ground. And everyone was like, did he fall in the water? Did he fall in the water? And I thought I was almost knocked out. So I thought I fell in the water. I was in deep shit. But that was so interesting to me. That was one of my favorite memories with all of us there, because there was only a few good memories with everybody there, because the Navy moves around people so much. You come into contact with someone, just like a dog is the best way I could compare it. You get this dog and you meet somebody and you kind of link up with them and you love them to death. They're your family, and then poof, they're gone. And it's really tough for some people to adjust out of that, I've noticed.
Yeah, especially if somebody's come from a steady family or a constant environment where things are always there. There was that support system, whether it was parents or siblings or, teachers, supervisors, whatever the case was before they joined. You could tell the people who had dependents that they could rely on back home. And then you had the people who you could identify, like, this person's going to be a rogue. This person's going to operate individually. They're going to be what's known as a fire and forget sailor, where you can give them the tasker. If they don't know, they're going to ask, and you're going to train them, and then you never have to train them again. Or it's going to have to be a constant, like, okay, here, this is the 10th time I've had to show you, but here we go again.
Oh,
But
that can be frustrating.
It can. And it always comes down to the sailor themselves, because, we get locked into this idea that, every service member is a cookie cutter, whatever the branch is, cookie cutter Marine, cookie cutter sailor, cookie cutter Army. What a lot of people take advantage of, or take for granted, I should say, is that as much as we work as a unit, it's what our differences are that defines us. That's what establishes our strength. That's what establishes our weaknesses, our opportunity to identify and adapt. Not so much fix, because that's, to me personally, that's a horrible word to say when you have people who have conflict. You don't want to fix that. You want to identify what the conflict is and then turn that into an opportunity to grow stronger.
Absolutely. You're so correct. And that's why I admire a lot of things, how you conduct yourself, how you carry yourself when you speak, because a lot of people can, anyone hearing this is going to be like, wow, are you serious? That's what it's like. That's what a good leader is supposed to do. It's supposed to build people up instead of just tell them to cancel whatever they're doing and reset. I think it's one of the most important leadership qualities that I've ever witnessed is the ability to look at somebody and peel them back on those layers. Like, there's a lot of sailors. You and I both dealt with a lot of sailors who just were trouble children. They are never going to succeed because they don't want to succeed. They want to be carried. And I've had to carry some of those people, and like, it was really difficult for me as a young person to understand. You did a way better job than I did, honestly, with some of these people, because I just wanted to be like, listen, let's slave this motherfucker into the ground. For those listening, I don't mean actual slavery. I mean, work this person late into the night and limit their free time so they have a new work ethic and appreciation for their free time. But I had to put that out there. But there's a lot of people that just need to get worked. You need to develop work ethic by working instead of being reprimanded in a way of standing on watch for not working. You need to work. Oh, you didn't work then? Well, you're going to work now, and I'm going to watch you, and it's going to be dark, pitch black. And when you hear taps, lights out, now it's bedtime.
Yeah, that was something that I actually dealt with at my first command. I came in 22 years ago, and even the mentality after all the trainings and the adaptations that the Navy had evolved and changed to become better. I actually dealt with a lot of leadership. I came in as an E1. I knew what I was getting myself into as an undez. My recruiter was honest with me. I love him. I actually still talk to him to this day.
That's
Great
cool.
guy. He warned me ahead of time. Like, look, I understand this is what you're going for, but you need to understand like this is what you're going to be dealing with. And I was like, I know that's what the classifier told me, and that's what I want to do. And then I got to my first command as a E nothing. And I remember the first 3 months, it was just like, good morning, petty officer. Good morning, chief. Good morning. Good afternoon, senior chief. Good afternoon, sir. And the level of professionalism from boot camp carried over. I never let that go. But then somebody literally had to stop me in the P-way and be like, out of 300 people on board the ship, they were like, look, everybody knows who you are because you won't let your professionalism down. Stop, because you're really pissing off a lot of people. And I stopped addressing everybody unless they were talking to me first initially. But then I also found that because of my desire to learn, desire to know, to desire to improve who I am, to become the best sailor that I could. Um, I was a knucklehead just like everybody else. I made mistakes, and back then there was a lot of training conducted, but there was a lot of people who were stuck in their ways of doing business. And I was given what's known as fan room counseling.
Oh yeah. Oh,
And
that's oh yes. Yeah.
that was about a
Sometimes
once a month occurrence.
where you just got to duke it out with somebody.
It was a one-way conversation. It
Oh, so
wasn't.
they beat you. Oh, I see what. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Ugh.
And for me, that was something that I could learn from. That was something that actually improved me. But I'm like the 0.0001%er
Mm,
that needs to learn that way.
okay.
A majority of people, 99.999% of people, you just have to explain it. You just have to show them. You just have to break open that manual, show them the diagram, read it, show them real quick in real time, and then that's it. That's all you had to do. I wasn't that person. What really got me more than anything else, especially when it comes to toxic leadership, was I had petty officers, third classes and second classes, because I only had one LPO, one first class. Um, and what they would do is, if there were days that they would come in and they were in a bad mood, they were pissed off, I would get beat, plain and simple.
And that's
It
horrible.
just, well, yes, I will not deny that it was horrible, but um, it was also my motivation to become a bosun's mate. It was my choice to get into the rate that I wanted to, because I realized that other people were having to deal with that, and that was something I could not tolerate. For somebody like me, I can take a hit and keep going. Like, it's not going to stop me. It just, I was made to take punches. A lot of people, that's not how they should have been treated,
Mhm.
you know? And so, yeah, that's people being who they were gave me the inspiration of who not to be, and then taking the good from good leadership and then exemplifying that and amplifying that, it became something different.
That's really special to hear that. The funniest thing. It reminds me of Batman. When Jim Gordon's talking about him and said, you wish you had a friend like mine to shove his hand in the fire so others don't get burnt. That is something that's the best way I can describe that. And wow, I never heard this before. So it's always a huge shock to me to hear about that. It really sucks that, because I had leadership like that as a child, and from
Mm-hmm.
father figures, and it's never a positive thing. My
Mm-hmm.
last conversation or confrontation, I would call it confrontation, was with my father before I left for the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a bad issue, and it was in front of my mom and my buddy, and like I got choked and pinned on my bed, and I started just throwing shots, and then my mom got splattered with blood. It was all bad. But that leadership of using physical force to not discipline somebody, but to abuse them just so you feel better about yourself is never a positive thing. And just kudos to you, man, for saying, I don't want to see people suffer like this. I want to make a difference. That's a big sign of just serious positive. It's like, I would call people say toxic masculinity is the thing. You just took masculinity and said, I'm gonna I'm going to redefine what masculinity is, because the Navy is all about with guys. So it's really interesting that you did that to stand up for other sailors so they don't have to suffer through the same bullshit. It's really cool, man.
Well, and I appreciate that. I don't like, there's a large portion of my career I don't talk about a lot of what I went through as a negative, because I don't want to pop that bubble of what the Navy could be with the right leadership, with the right sailors. There's very few sailors I've actually gotten to get to know on a one-to-one level that, they still contact me now at this point, and they still ask for advice. They still ask for clarification or interpretation on an instruction and things like that. Or, hey, I know we did this when you were here. How did we do it again? Or, did you think we could have done something different? I don't ever expect it to be a lot of sailors, because I know I pissed off probably 3 times more sailors than I ever actually helped. And that was because I didn't have a wavering moral compass. There was what was right and what wasn't right, plain and simple. And that's just how I've always seen it. And when people fail to adhere to that moral compass, whether they want to waver or vary from it due to personal reasons or professional or just fear in general, that's when we start losing our integrity. Because I've been given orders, I've been told to do very sketchy, unquestionable stuff early in my career because I was a junior sailor. Yeah. And I refused. So they stopped asking me. And it just, they would go to somebody who would do it because they knew they could intimidate those sailors to do it. So.
Oh, I really, I've probably spoken with about 10 people over the last month that I served with, and it was really difficult for me to hear that same similarity across the board. They got sick and tired of being told to do things that either 1, are not effective, 2, have been proven time and time to be a bad idea, or 3, affect others in a negative way. And I don't know if for those listening, you can not follow an order if it's not lawful. If it's not a proper order, a proper instruction that benefits the mission of the Navy or the mission of the ship, or if it harms another sailor, or if it goes against just your moral compass personally, you can say, yeah, go ahead and write me up, see how it goes. And I've said that twice. Both times they tried to write me up, it didn't go over too well. Like I didn't even make it to DRB because the orders given orders that were so questionable. I was like, listen, man, I don't know what environment you're living in. I don't care if you're in the Navy or not. I'm not doing that because it's not good. It is unhealthy for our sailors. You're jeopardizing their safety. And I don't know if you ever heard the story about George. He got told to bring a bunch of sailors and spray out of space with no ventilation, no mask, or even with masks on, no ventilation. All of them had to get carted off in ambulances because
when was this?
All died. This was back in the shipyard before the TR ever deployed. It was that
was before.
It was a really big deal, and all of it could have been avoided if you looked at the things on his shoulders and ignored them and said, listen, I don't care what your instructions are. This is unsafe. You're jeopardizing the lives of your sailors, and I'm not going to be the one to carry this out. And neither are they. That leadership, that going against the grain is huge.
Well, and it is difficult. People think that, and this actually even relates to our current societal upheaval, I guess you could say. People think just because you're going to buck the system or go against what people are used to doing, just because it's convenient for them to do the right thing, they think it's going to be easy. And that's not how it works. When you believe in something, when you know at the core of who you are, of human nature is right, it doesn't matter how hard it gets, because it will get hard. And that's the reason why we are where we are now, because you have people who, just because they were raised, because that was their ideal, they feel that that's okay. And when somebody says, no, that's not okay, that's not how we're going to do business, it causes problems. And those are the right types of problems, whether they're in the Navy or as a human race. You want to stop what's wrong, and somebody else isn't going to do it.
That is absolutely right. I think the thing I'm the most afraid of being in life when there's a confrontation is an innocent bystander. I don't pull out my phone to videotape confrontation. You know, like me personally, I'm armed about 24/7, 365, unless I'm drinking alcohol out of like a bar. I don't carry my firearm on me because it's irresponsible. Like I have a knife and other shit. But there's so many bad things to do that have to do with standing by and letting things bad happen. There's a bunch of instances that are very, very popularly talked about right now. As people got video footage of it, and I think some instances you should not get intervening, especially when there's firearms and stuff involved in. But you know, every now and then it pays off to step up and say, this is wrong, it needs to stop right now. And I've always been the type of person, ever since I was a child, to tell the bully at school, you're not gonna punch him again while I'm here, and I'll take it to my grave. I've had my face beat in. For some reason, I never had my nose broken. Thank God, it's the only thing I got left. But I've had black eyes. I've had teeth knocked loose. I've had my ribs kicked to the point where I could barely breathe. You know, a bunch of times. I've been stomped out. I've had my knee hit with a bat after a soccer game for trying to stick up for my buddy. Like, a lot of things happen. And is there are you going to pay the price sometimes for being the right guy, right person at the right time? Yes. But is it worth it? Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
It definitely is.
Without a doubt. It's not an easy situation. Most people aren't cut out. Though actually, there's some people who will do more harm trying to step in to do the right thing.
Oh yeah.
You know, you have like a lot of white people who are, and I'm going to anger so many people by saying this.
Say it all. Mean everything
But
you say.
You have a lot of white people who are trying to be heroes. They're trying to virtue. What's the word I'm looking for?
Virtue signal.
Is that what it is?
I think it's called virtue signaling, but that has kind of like a negative thing. I think a better way to say it is they're trying to be a part of something that they might not understand, or they're trying to just be a good person. It's not the right time sometimes.
I think what it more entails is they get an idea of what they think is going on, and they're willing to sacrifice everything for something that can be easily talked out.
Ooh,
something that can be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I by no means will ever say I've experienced anything that people of color have ever experienced. I will never try and stand up for somebody who doesn't believe that there's that they were wronged.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, there's times where I'll say something, and if I have a problem with it, it's going to come from me. Like, hey, look, I'm telling you right now, he may be okay with you saying so and so it's such a thing. I'm not. So I'm asking that you don't say anything, please.
Good
like,
for you.
stop.
Yeah.
That's not okay. But then you have people who, you know, they just go high and right so fast, so hard. It's like they don't even believe what they're saying. It's just a knee-jerk reaction for them, and they are really doing more harm than good. Plain and simple.
Definitely. I think a great example of that is Antifa. You know, I don't care how much these people say they're doing great. When you yell Black Lives Matter and run it, this is one example. I've had like multiple encounters, none of which I can only talk about one because it went over kind of smoothly. But the one encounter I've had with them is that I got trapped on an overpass by to get on the freeway by the protesters, right? Peaceful protesters. They got totally the freeway. So they said, okay, we're gone. They left the freeway, right? No problem. Right. No harm, no foul. I'm sorry. We're fucking gone. Peaceful protest is moving. Out of the woodworks come Antifa, running at me, trying to smash cars around me. There's a car next to me full of Africans. You know, you ever see one of those Hondas that's weighed down because you got like 10 people in the back seat?
Yep.
That's the type of Honda it was. It was beat down from like the 90s. And they run up and they start, these kids have their hands over like the half down window. Start bashing the window, smashing near the kid's hand. And this is happening right next to me. And I'm not stupid. I'm never lacking. So I always have my gun on me. I'm like, this is going to go one of three ways. One, going home. Everything's going to be good. Two, I'm going to have to use deadly force if deadly force is done upon me. And three, I'm going to give them a warning and they're going to let me pass. Thankfully, the third of those happened. I had to put a red dot on somebody. I was like, listen, dude, I'm in fear of my life. You're trying to like attack my vehicle while I'm inside it. You got to go. just let me go home, please. I like begged him. I was almost brought to tears. I was so enraged. I was shaking. I was like, dude, let me go the fuck home. Let everybody go the fuck home. We have nothing to do with what's going on here. You telling me Black Lives Matter? I know. I got to have the great experience of watching my dad get the shit kicked out of him by the Tacoma police before they had badge cams right in front of me while I had a shotgun in my face and I was 16. So I know what this whole Black Lives Matter thing. Yeah, I get it. I get it. You know, it makes sense. But this Antifa shit does not make sense. There's no reason I should be getting pressed. I should be getting pressed. You're gonna scream that at me while I am black. If they didn't know that, I am black, and not all white people are racist either. I have no problem saying that. My mom doesn't know what white privilege is. She's worked 3 jobs for most of her life. 2, one normal one. She's had a side gig, and she also did decluttering for a long time. So she always had 3 jobs for most of my life. And she was a single mother for a time period, and she was, in relationships for a time period. But we've never had this luxurious life that comes with apparent white privilege or white equity or whatever the fuck they're calling it. It just doesn't. Everybody's different, and it kind of keys into what you said earlier, that we're all individuals. You can't broad stroke a whole nation because of the color of their skin. That is racism in itself.
Well, you and I have been on a couple deployments, and we've I know you've experienced through our various talks. I mean, gosh, 6 years now. Six years ago when we first met.
Yes, 6 years.
Over our various times that we've actually talked and just sat down, and wasn't just shop talk. We were actually, talking to each other. We experienced, and I say we because I understood more about what a society could do when it's based off of a certain ideology of race.
Yes.
We were visiting countries that, you can see it when you know what you're looking for, but when it's right there glaring at you straight in your face, just pure unadulterated racism. It's a completely different animal that it changes your life. And that's when people start getting a better idea, like, okay, look, this is a problem. This is what needs, now I know what to look for, things like that. Because, I don't want to mention any countries, but a lot of times when I went out, I had various Liberty buddies. I had different people to go out with.
Yeah.
But it's still heartbreaking because I still think of it today, and that's what I lay back on. Like, this is what racism is, and this is the right way to fix it. People want to break it down to make it smaller, so that way it's easier to sweep under the rug. It's there. It exists.
Yes. It does.
Does privilege exist? Absolutely.
I think
and it's
usually
always backed
class
by the
related.
almighty dollar. It's
exactly.
backed by the almighty dollar. People want to smack capitalism. I'm sorry, but you can show me one individual who knows how to effectively live completely unplugged from society, and I'm talking like farming, technology, medical sciences, whatever. When you have this whole rounded person who can do that, that is when we can start making the change into doing something different. But unfortunately, we as a society on this planet are always looking for the bigger, better deal. And we're doing it for our kids. We're trying to make our lives better. We're trying to make our kids' lives better. And by doing that, we feed into capitalism because you're paying somebody to do something you can't or don't know how to do.
Instead of expecting someone to do it for fear of death, like in other countries. I think we served with we both served with a similar chief who went to officer. He's from Venezuela, and he told me, like, he explained to me what socialism government looks like, and he told me about the horrors of in his country. Their money that they use to make business transactions with, line the streets, people getting killed for trying to ask for more bread because they have more people in their families. Socialism might work on a small scale. Yeah, absolutely. But like with a family, that's how it works. in a capitalist environment, just like democracy works in a democratic republic, which is what our country is kind of based off of.
A majority of
Yeah,
countries, yeah.
and the majority of countries in the world are supposed to be, or should be, like that if they're not already. Because I
Mhm.
don't know about you, but I don't like the government killing its innocent, civilians after they disarm the civilians, and then they get killed in the street trying to get food in the bread lines. And I have a lot
Yeah.
of people that I serve with that are from Venezuela, and I could not imagine the horrors of knowing that they have family members, or if I had a family member in these countries that this is going on in, and it's a travesty to see, a true tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had the pleasure of working with the young man for my second ship. Uh he was from Mozambique, I believe, and him and his family, first generation, they literally migrated here. He joined the Navy because he wanted his kids to have benefits and things like that. And that's how I first was introduced to a totalitarianism ideology or government, where people felt that you had to run the country with military, and the military was consisted of volunteers who were getting perks, who were getting kickbacks because they were getting a higher class of living than people who were not in the military, so to speak.
And that's horrible. That's
And
a system based off oppression. It sounds like an oppressive
yep,
system.
yep. And that's exactly what it was. And it's talking to him before I even went on deployment was an eye-opening experience, because I knew what California was all about.
Mhm.
I had visited other states, but I visited other states.
Yeah.
This is the first time I actually talked to someone whose lifestyle was completely, no pun intended, foreign to me.
Mhm.
And I learned so much getting a chance to talk to him. I think I was like 20, I think I was like 20 or 21 years old. And the gentleman was like 36. And because of all those talks, because I was always asking questions, I wanted to learn, I wanted to know, I wanted to broaden my vision on what the world was about and people in general. He actually invited me to his citizenships, his naturalization ceremony on the USS Midway down in San Diego.
How special is that?
That was, I've been to sailors, kids who were born. I've been there for funerals. I've been there. I will never be as touched or as moved as when I got invited and I watched my sailor in his dress whites, San Diego, on the flight deck at the USS Midway, be sworn in as a United States citizen.
That is so special,
That
dude.
is that is something I will never. That is something I'll never, and that's the reason why I can remember this young man, because aside from learning so much from him, he invited me to be a part of what was important for him and his family.
What it means to be an immigrant coming into America. I think there's a lot of things that could be improved about the system that we have as far as immigration. I think
Mhm,
the border crisis, I think it's a serious issue, but I think that it's so special for me. I have a lot of friends that gained their citizenship via
mhm,
military servitude, so it's always been
mhm,
special for me to witness that. I think the
mhm,
second, or the most impactful ceremony that I've ever witnessed in my life, other than my wedding, is seeing that Navy SEAL that got killed, Mr. Keating. He got brought back down that strip in San Diego after we were doing PT back in San Diego,
mhm,
and his family, the bikers, and seeing the mom put her arm out the window, like trying to like feed some type of life energy about her, what her son's life was from us, as the thunderous procession of felt like 1,000 motorcycles, and they all had vet patches, a
mhm,
bunch of 1%ers, 2%ers, 3%ers, and then it was so crazy to me to see all these SEALs and to see
mhm,
so many of them crying, because I thought, oh, toughest people in the world, they're crying tears. And it reminded me of the bond that we all share as people of this country doing service, whether it's moving boxes, whether it's killing terrorists, whether it's staying in a 160-degree sweat box on July 4th, or whether it's manning the boat deck for hours because we have a friend that committed suicide or tried to commit suicide and it's swimming in the water. All of us have this bond of servitude. Doesn't matter what our job was, we all signed up to do something special. And
mhm.
our last names are over our heart. It's that way for a reason. We really represent our families properly by being a member of our communities, but on a national scale. And I think that's what makes the military so special, because it doesn't matter where you came from, doesn't matter how many people you hurt before you left the Navy, doesn't matter who your dad was, doesn't matter if your mom was in your life or not, doesn't matter if you used to do drugs, who cares? You're here, you're one of us. And that type of brotherhood, that and sisterhood and familyhood, whatever you want to call it, because I don't want to judge anybody's gender or whatever, but that it's special. It's so special. And I wish people could just see how much it breaks one of our hearts when we lose another person. Have you ever lost anybody special to you while you're in the military?
Yeah. There's a couple situations where I've dealt with loss. I lost my father back in 2007.
My condolences, brother.
I appreciate that. He was my best friend. He was actually the reason why I went into the Navy, because I graduated from high school with a D average. I didn't have any job prospects. I grew up in a trailer park, so my future was pretty much set in stone until I saw the recruiter on campus. I remember all the stories my dad used to tell me, being 3 years in Hawaii, 3 years in Japan, and all the things that he got a chance to see and do. And two of my uncles are actually his former Navy buddies. And one of them is still alive that I still talk to. He's, I still consider him an uncle. You know, I call him every once in a while. And and ironically, the reason why I bring this up more than anything else is because he was actually on the ship with me when 9/11 happened. We're on our way back from San Diego. We were doing our Tiger cruise.
How cool.
We left Hawaii September 9th, 2001. We were with the Connie Battle Group. We were getting ready to do that morning. We were supposed to do the air show with the Connie. And, we got up, had breakfast, dead silent. And, we happened to look at the TV, and that's when the footage of the second tower getting hit happened.
Oh,
and,
God. I'll never forget that day.
Yeah. Yeah. I looked at my dad, and he goes, "You're going to war. You're going back." And I kind of, in stunned silence, kind of nodded. They were trying to debate what was going on. My dad was ready to enlist again right then and there. Like, if he could have, he would have swept the entire time. He didn't care. He would have had a job with the Navy. He would have loved to have gone with us. But they continued us to San Diego and, during our palm period. When he passed away, we had just came back off deployment. And this is where toxic leadership really, a form of toxic leadership really got to me, because there was a lot of favoritism at this command when he passed away, because, from personal experience, when you come back off a leave, or when you come back off the deployment, you're supposed to get a stand up.
Yeah.
And we were close to a holiday at the time. And the command would not let me take both leave periods, even though I had more than enough days to do it. And I had like an abundance of days. And I told him, I was like, look, I want to take it for the holiday, and I want to take it for the palm, which are two separate periods. They told me no, I had to choose one or the other. So I gave up on the palm, went on the holiday, supposed to go on the holiday. When I got the call, he had passed away alone in his trailer. And it was earth shattering for me, just because of how much he meant to me, to lose him like that. Because I found out after the fact he was going through a lot of medical issues. He didn't want to tell me out of concern for my career. He didn't want me to deviate from what was important to both of us in my career. So there was a lot I didn't know until after the fact. But the command outside the department really went above and beyond, and not only did a burial at sea, but also recorded it, marked it on a chartlet. The captain had written a letter, and I got the folded flag during the ceremony of committing him to sea. which is something he wanted. I've not in a physical way, but in a familiar way, I lost my mother and brother due to horribly, horribly toxic relationship issues. And then I'm sad to say that I'm also divorced after being married for 10 years. Um, I became one of those sailors that came home to an empty house.
Jesus Christ. How did that unfold, man? Because first off, again, my condolences about your father. You know, I got a little bit emotional, wiping tears. I'm admitting it on the
Sorry about that.
on this because it's so special for me to hear you talk about your dad in such a positive light. Him being your best friend and your father, that's special. Usually you hear about like daddy's little girl, but being having a dad being a best friend is always a tearjerker for me, and it pulls on every single heartstring I could possibly have because that's special that you have this relationship with your dad, and to receive a flag from the captain and everything. The Navy can be one of the best families you need in a time where you lose somebody special, or it can be your worst enemy. And I'm glad that they were there for you, especially the captain. That's so significant. That's very special. Oh goodness, Jesus Christ. So do you want to talk a little bit about going through a divorce? Because I know I witnessed a part of it, and it was really tough to see someone who I looked up to as a leader going through a tough time, and I didn't know what to say to you to help you get through this time, but I just tried to be a listening ear when I could, because no one knows how to be when something like that happens. And I was just like, fuck, dude, I wish I could just wish all your issues away. And
Yeah.
I couldn't.
No, and I appreciate that. I know the effect that it had on you because of the heart that you have. You have a very giving, very caring heart. You've always been that way. It's one of your passions. It's one of the reasons why I hold you in such high regard when it came to sailors morale, because I knew you were going to do what was right for the sailor, not for the situation to make it easier for everybody, but to take care of the sailor. I'll be completely honest. That period of my life was completely and utterly horrible. Just doesn't ring as strong as it should. I would never wish, even on my worst enemy, on the person I hated most in this world, I would never wish that they would ever go through what I went through. Divorce, loss of family, any type of loss is horrible. But when you are completely blindsided on deployment, that let me back it up just a little bit. So during the majority of the deployment, when I flew out and joined the ship, everything was fine. There was no signs, there was no signals. It's not like anything was ever amiss. Everything felt amazing. We were always talking, whether it was via internet, email, sat phone, pot sign, whatever the case was, or in port, we were video chatting just like this. And she never said or gave me any type of indicator that this was going to happen. And then just one morning, I got that message on Facebook Messenger from her saying, I want a divorce. And that was literally the extent of the message. And we were still 3 months out.
I walked in the office and I just looked at you, and you looked like you just killed somebody for the first time in your life. And I didn't know what the fuck to do. I was like, are they okay? He's like, yeah, I'll be right up. You boxed up that emotion that hit you like a ton of bricks. And just another testament to the type of person you are. You boxed it all up, and then you came up and acted like nothing was wrong.
I wouldn't hold me in such high regard, because I'll be honest with you, there was a period during that time where because I wasn't reaching out for both emotional and psychological help that I should have been getting from the beginning, that I should have been asking for, not expecting, but asking for. I was acknowledging I was having an issue at the time, but I was this is where my toxic masculinity came into play, because I was under the impression I could take care of this. I can fix this. I don't need somebody else to worry about me, because she had already done the damage of me relying on somebody else. So now it's got to be a me thing. Now I've got to fix this. And in doing that, I became a toxic leader for a period of time. And I had some sailors who had a very strong backbone that I'm very thankful for, who talked to me, who addressed it to me like, hey, look, Boats, you can't say stuff like that. You're going to kill the drive. You're going to kill the motivation. They're not going to want to work.
Mhm.
And that came from both Chief Brontes and from junior sailors, which I was receptive of. I don't have a problem listening if there's a problem. If I'm a problem, I don't have an issue with that. But tell me what the problem is. Don't tell me I'm a problem. Tell me what the problem is. And that's what a lot of sailors were doing. Not a lot, but it's what a lot of the leadership was doing. That's what a couple of the junior sailors, they were like, hey, look, been through there, got it. You're struggling. I advise that this is not something that you say or do. And because of that, because of the strength that those sailors had to do the right thing and address an issue, I did reach out. I did start talking to Fleet and Family Services. I started seeing outside professional help
That's good.
to help get me back to an even keel, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I remember that time, and I had the experience of being directly over a lot of junior sailors, and they always come to talk to me like, dude, what the fuck is going on with him? And I was like, listen, man, some things we just don't talk about. Some things we don't share with other people. If he hasn't talked to you about it, then it's really none of your business. But if you're wondering why he's acting like, why he's being like this, he's hurting, brother. And my recommendation is you just be as positive to him as you can, because I've always been able to, I try to be, it sounds kind of stupid, but I love it anyway. Lord of the Rings said, be a light in the darkness, right? So I've always tried to understand and help people through tough situations, not from a, hey, this is what you need to do. Some people got to find their own path. And I'm glad there were people that helped guide you into the lane you needed to go. I never looked at you as a piece of shit or anything like that about how you were dealing with things, because one, who the fuck am I to judge you? I know I couldn't stomach that. If that happened to me, I wouldn't know who I'd be, because all I had when I left, I didn't have a family when I left for the Navy. I had my wife, and that's it. So I don't really know how to be if that would happen to me. And then somebody confronted me one time, like, why do you always try to make excuses for how he's talking to people? I say, listen, dude, I want you to put yourself in his shoes for 10 minutes. This is after you explain and you apologize. You actually did something that's very special. You apologize to people for how you were conducting yourself publicly. You said, hey man, I'm sorry for doing this. I'm just going through a tough time. And everybody, we had like a kind of a come to Jesus moment. It was special. Things like that are important to have as a leader coming down to, your POs and shit. And he's like, one of them asked me, he's like, what's going on? Why is this all going on? I'm like, listen, bro, you really got to put yourself in someone else's shoes. You would not know how to conduct yourself as a human being if everything you know changed while you were gone serving your country. And I can say this, there is nothing more deserving of a lifelong hell, if there's any people that are listening to this that are Christians, is violating a marriage while someone's deployed serving their country. You're doing something that is completely selfless. You're giving your life for low pay, shitty hours, some good experiences and a lot of tough ones to the country, and you didn't get that reciprocated by your partner, which is like the worst thing I could ever think of. So
I think the worst part, I think honestly, and this is something I know personally, if she would have been more honest from the start, telling me that she already had a boyfriend, she was using my money to buy him stuff, to fly him down to stay in our place, to drive him around all the places that I would take her that were romantic, things like that. If honestly she would just have been more honest, I would have been a lot more understanding. I would have been a lot more supportive and a lot less self-destructive, for lack of a better word. That's the only thing I've ever asked for, is honesty from anybody I've ever interacted with. Like, look, I don't care if you tell me something that's going to hurt my feelings or I'm going to hate you. There's a philosophy I've always gone by. It's like, I would rather you hate me for telling you the truth than you liking me because I lied to you.
You said that the first week that you were there.
And that was something that's something that I had carried through my entire career, and she failed to do that. And she knew that. It's nothing new. It's nothing I didn't tell her before. We'd always been honest. And the fact that she wasn't is the reason why I didn't handle it as well, because I was trying to take it on, and what her issues were, I was trying to fix. And it wasn't my place to do that.
You know, you weren't the person that was wrong in this situation. Anybody that was there can tell you that. And it always, sometimes I have nightmares of and this is me being completely transparent. Sorry. I had nightmares sometimes of seeing you in that state, hurting. You know, I often think about my deployment, and a big part of it was talking to you and seeing you go through that hurt, and it reminded me a lot of my childhood with my parents getting their divorce. And my heart goes out to you always for, you know, being a champion through that situation, and still giving some form of effort towards the day. When you have something going on back home, and any vet listening can attest to this, when you got something going on back home, if that shit's not properly secured for sea, it's going to be a long minute, every single minute of the day, every single hour of the night, and you're going to be awake for a lot of them. You might cry a lot, you might hate life a lot, and it's hard to go through things when you're not in the real world. I call it, the Navy is not the real world. The Navy is the Navy. So when you come back to the real world, you still got to deal with that shit when you get home. And that was what I was the most concerned about for you. When we pulled in from port, I was very excited, but I was also I felt like a piece of me was missing, because all of us connected pretty good over that course of that deployment. So I was worried about you. And you know, I every time I stopped by the ship, I went to personally seek you out to see if you were on duty, just so I could check in on you, man. And I couldn't imagine going through. You have to be a certain type of strong motherfucker to go through you went through. I don't know anybody who could have gone through what you went through and decided not to hurt themselves in some way, shape, or form. You are a ridiculously strong constitution, or excuse me, you have a very strong constitution, and it showed. And you have some serious integrity for not, letting this consume you.
I know I could have done better. I should have. Not so much for myself, but for the junior sailors, because the petty officers, you, and everybody else, I really working with all of you guys was it put me back in a good place with the military. Because honestly, I had debated getting out for the longest time, because I just wasn't, after that last command previously, I was so done. I was over it. But working with you, working with the other petty officers from the division, the leadership, I felt a renewed sense of vigor to continue, to keep going. And when that happened, it took my legs out. You all showed a sense of professionalism and work ethic that is a dying breed. Whether it was you guys were taking care of each other, taking care of the sailors, taking care of the division, the department, the ship, whatever it was, the watch, everything that you guys were doing was a true testament of not needing leadership. You guys were identifying, you guys were on top of your 3M. No hits.
Oh yeah, I was up all night. I took Veronix, that fucking motherfucker, that little gutter biscuit. I took him and I said, "Listen, you're staying up all night and getting all these done, and then I'll try to let you sleep in tomorrow. But you're staying up all night. We're gonna change your name." And from that point on, he was a little bit better than he used to be.
And then you guys were swapping out 21 when it was being inspected. You guys swapped out hoses. You guys were swapping out the probe. You guys did that. You guys, I mean, from before you even started, you guys had the manuals open.
Oh yeah.
And it just, everything that entire deployment success was on each and every one of you, without a doubt.
You did have a major part in it, whether you believe it or not, because having a different person from a different style of leadership show up, and when you're already a sound crew, you already have a crew that's set up. We didn't really need BM1s. You showed up and you gave a new aspect of what, a person having a different vision for your situation might open up to you. There's a lot of things you said to me, and I was like, yeah, I understand. And I looked at the manual, and I looked at what you said, and I was like, fuck this manual. This manual's garbage. It's outdated. I'm gonna listen to him instead. There's a lot of things that you don't know, and people are usually too prideful to thank you. I'm gonna say it right now, thank you, because you showed me a lot of things that I didn't understand. I didn't know how to do 3M. Asking BM1 Bridgman to teach me about 3M on a computer was like asking an IT tech how to teach me how to write code in Japanese in 2 minutes. Yeah. So yeah,
I
tough.
appreciate it. I appreciate it, but you guys, again, it comes down to you. I came in, you guys were already successful long before I came there. I wasn't trying to buck the system. I wasn't trying to change anything to the way I was used to doing it. You guys were already successful. For me to go in there and change that dynamic would have been a setup for failure, plain and simple. And so, honestly, as much as I do appreciate that, you guys really need to give yourselves the credit that you deserve for that, because a lot of times we had some close calls, and not by any human error.
Oh no.
Either it was mechanical or
the other ship. Jesus
or
Christ.
the other ship.
Oh, I remember the one unwrapper had to take the shotgun and blast the high line on station 19, and then there was
19.
And then there was the Indian ship who wanted to send us over polypropylene line to do unwrap, and then it parted and almost killed Eights, and Senior Chief Osbury pushed him out of the way.
I remember that because I was on the station with them at that time.
Yeah, I yelled everybody get the fuck down, and Senior Chief Osbury shoves dude out of the way and yells, and I didn't know what he said at all, right? And then I think it was either Anderson or Porter was running the show, and I'm like grabbing every single little girl who has no idea what the fuck going on, every single guy fresh out of high school, and I'm like shoving them to the ground. Shit parts.
No, it was Bosun Bowl. Bosun Bowl had the rig at the time because we had never done a connection.
Yeah,
because we had never done.
That's why it went wrong, because of him.
No,
I'm joking.
It went wrong because the way that they had tied up their span wire to their probe, they sent their probe over with we didn't even have the span wire hooked up yet. Oh yeah, they sent the whole rig over, and you guys were heaving around. I remember you guys had to take it to the capstan to bring it over to us. But yeah, that whole situation, that was one of the few times where I'm surprised we didn't get out with somebody hurt.
Yeah,
I'm glad we didn't. Don't get me wrong.
I'm very thankful.
But it just with so much that was going wrong with that ship, with the whole evolution. We were adapting, we were learning. We got like a lot of good notes, but I'm just thankful more than anything else that nobody got hurt that day.
Yeah, I've sustained a lot of injuries. I think one of the most frustrating to deal with was when we were doing unwrap. I think I was on like station. I think it might have been station 19, because we always finish first because we're the fastest. I took the rig of 500-pound bombs, the edge of it to the inside of my knee, and fucked my shit up. I'm absolutely sure it shattered something in my knee. But I walked on. After that, I started limping. I walked on the rest of the deployment. When we pulled into San Diego, I limped the whole time. I couldn't even do legs. I was in a knee brace for most of it, and I really should have gone to medical and dealt with that instead of being a prideful idiot who was scared of getting kicked out. Because when I went to medical, I said, "Hey, I need some Motrin." And like why? I said, "Dude, I just took this fucking thing to my knee," and I showed him my knee. He was like, "Dude, if they do an MRI on this, you might get separated." And I said, "Well, I'm going upstairs then. Bye." Thankfully, I had a good friend who in the hospital, who didn't report me, because I could have been separated, and I wouldn't have known where. I didn't have a home to go back to. I didn't have a home when I left for the Navy. I did not have a home, and so I was terrified of that. My biggest fear was going back to a place where I don't have an apartment. I don't have shit. I have some of my stuff. I have barely anything in my girlfriend's garage at her house, and I didn't have like a home. I left for the Navy with no home, so it was very scary to me to be separated. I should have got my shit checked. I should have had it dealt with. I should have done it all.
There's a lot of sailors there's a lot of people. I'm not going to even specify sailors. There's a lot of people who think they have an idea of what is the right or wrong thing or what the outcome could be. And I'll be honest, for the most part, they need to get their damn mouth shut because they don't have any room to fucking say anything. For somebody in medical to tell you, whether it was a enlisted or officer from the ship, for any of them to tell you that if for getting an MRI, you could have been separated, they put your life at risk.
It's true, man. It's so true.
Because look how long you suffered on your knee that could have been fixed from the jump, and
Absolutely.
you never would have been separated.
Yeah, I really.
But because they put
wish I
that fear
did
into you.
I really did wish I did, but I know two things. In hindsight, I learned two valuable lessons. One, don't be stupid. Two,
that's always a good one.
Yeah, and two, tell everybody who isn't in the military at all, or everybody who's leaving, document every single thing that's ever happened to you. Now,
Absolutely.
in hindsight, like I'm in fear of my knees going out in the next couple of years. I have to start going back and try to file for disability now. And what type of a piece of shit files for disability 6 years after being separated from the Navy? That's like my current situation right now, and I'm still hesitant. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go find a doctor. I'm like, listen, bro, I fucked up. I should have gotten checked out. Can you help me, get signed up with the VA? I should have done it. Should have done it years ago, and I'm really reaping the benefits of that now. When I kneel down and I hear a horrible scraping, painful noise when my left knee stands up, so gotta make sure I get that dealt with.
It's important to do it. It's important to do it. Period. Doesn't matter the time. I know a lot of sailors who, especially because they're young, they're able to adapt. They're able to compensate. They're able to get through life without having to worry about it. But then they start getting older, and then that injury becomes more apparent. And I say that because, I'm about to turn 40 this year, and I've noticed a lot of the things that I did in my career has caused injuries that I compensated for because I was young. I was spry. I was able to balance out, much like a situation like yours, when we dropped the boat from the deck edge all the way down to the water because we lost tension on the wire.
Jesus Christ.
At the time I had like a pop that happened and I just kept going. We went out there, we did boat ops, so on and so forth, came back. No issues. I didn't even feel anything.
Was it your knee?
Now, yeah, it was my knee.
You probably snapped your ACL.
No. Apparently, what had happened was I actually detached my kneecap and it was floating. In my knee.
That's really good.
Well, it was one of the things that just, like I said, it's important that you report it and you have that paperwork, you have that medical record. This is for anybody who's in, like you said, document everything. Don't let somebody just kind of give you like a back alley deal where they just give you meds and tell you to go sleep it off. Don't.
Yeah.
Make sure everything's documented. Do it the right way. Do it the official way.
Absolutely right, brother. It's really difficult for me to try to put this in words for people, but I could have stopped myself from having a horrible depressive state because I was working on my physique, right? I'd never liked being the skinny guy. I was 130 pounds. Now I weigh like 210. So it's a pretty, but at first I got up to like 150, 160, but I couldn't even squat. So obviously my legs are going to be misproportioned, and I'm more of a complete kind of guy. So I like to do things the right way, all the way. So if my legs are small and my upper body's big, when I am stripped down in my underwear and I look in the mirror by accident, like glancing by, I'm like, oh fuck, I look like shit. I really have a difficult time dealing with that. And so I lost all my weight. I let myself kind of reset. It didn't work out for like 6 months. And then I took the time to just heal, but and rest. And I started with the leg extension, the squats, growing the muscles around my knee to support it. And then I got into fitness. And now I can squat 315, no problem. I'm doing like deadlifts with 405 pounds for reps. Like, it's no problem. Like, but a lot of people get in the military and they get hurt and then they say, oh, I'm tough. I'll deal with this. No, the doctor can and will deal with it. And when you get out, you will reap everything you sow. If you sow bad seeds, your knees, your joints, your hips, especially if you're in the Navy, your knees, you're going to feel it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's just a certain sense of hubris or ego that comes into play when it comes to asking for help, going through the proper channels to doing what you need to do. I want to mention something because I'm going to segue into something pretty traumatic
Okay.
that happened later on in my career. Um, so I'm just going to say this, so forgive me for how brash and abrupt this
Be
is about to
honest,
be,
brother.
but
Be honest.
oh, that's not going to be the problem. So on my first deployment, I was actually celebrating my 21st birthday, and I had gotten blindingly drunk. I spent most of that deployment drunk, but the first port we hit was Australia. So was celebrating my 21st birthday, and I was actually raped by a male and a female.
Oh my
They were
God.
dating. Yeah, they were dating. They were from the ship. Um, Basically what had happened was is staying at a hotel room. They got a room to the key or key to the room. They knew I went back drunk, and they full blown had taken advantage of me. I remember who they are, but for the longest time, I couldn't say anything to anyone. I was afraid to say something to someone because I was embarrassed because people know that when sexual assault happens, there's an idea that it's only to one person or one type of person. And for that to happen to me was embarrassing. It was terrifying. And like I said, for over 10 years, I didn't say anything. I never told anyone. I never shared that with anyone. Even my ex didn't know anything about it. And it wasn't until I got in contact with an old shipmate from that command, and they asked me, hey, did something happen on the deployment? Because they had heard a rumor. And when they started talking to me, that rumor popped back up. And then that's when all the memories came flooding back. I didn't get the help that I should have gotten again from that. I internalized, I bottled it up, I buried it. I honestly forgot all about it until she had asked me about it. The reason why I bring this up is because that same ideal that I had dealt with, a former shipmate had gone through it too, had gone through something traumatic. And because they didn't ask for help, because they didn't reach out to talk to anyone, and I at no means do I blame them for not asking for help. I blame the people to have to cause him to ask for help, to have them ask for help. Um, I lost a sailor. I was there because I had gotten the call, I had gotten the text messages, I was told where to go, and I was on my way there. And even still to this day, I wish I would have gotten there sooner. It may not have made a difference, but to me, it would have, because I wish I would have gotten there sooner to help them, because I was watching what the effects were of what they did. And knowing who this person was, having to watch the realization of what was happening still haunts me to this day. I saved those text messages because I was texting him, asking where he was at, talk to me, where you at, what can, like, let me come talk to you, let me come help you, because I didn't know at the time. I thought he was just hurting. I just wanted to be there to help him. And it wasn't until I got there that I realized what was going on, what had been taking place. And that's why I've been such an advocate. I've struggled to help. No, that's not right. I've struggled to encourage people to ask for help. You can't make anybody do something that they don't want to do. If somebody doesn't want to make their situation better, they won't. But you can always be there to support and encourage it. And that's the one thing I've tried to do as long as I can remember, because no one should ever have to go through that type of pain. The
Jesus,
pain
man.
that causes them to choose to make a decision like that their family has to continue living with. That everybody, the brand new sailor who just checked on board the ship, to everybody who knew them from 5 years ago, is going to be forever remembered as working with a sailor that had gone through something, and then they have to carry that with them.
Damn, man, that is. I'm like covered in cold sweats right now after hearing that. I want to just share with you that one, I appreciate you opening up to. I do know as well as you do that it is difficult to talk about sexual assault, anything that goes beyond consent is difficult to talk about. I was preyed on as a child by pedophiles, and that's why I feel so strongly against pedophilia. I feel so strongly against predators out there, and I feel that adult predators are just as horrible. So thank you for opening up. There's no condolences. It's not even a thing. I'm so sorry that happened for you. So sorry that happened to your friend as well, and my condolences for them. Finding a friend who ends his own life is the toughest thing that I think a person can go through. Damn, dude, it's really tough to hear about that from you. I wish fuck, I don't even know what to say. Have you gone to counseling? Like, are you talking to people about this?
For that, from my experience, from what happened to me, no.
Okay.
Because of what happened to my sailor, I went to Keiko class, which is it's I don't want to say it's an opportunity, because it's not positive. It's probably the most taxing thing you'll ever do in the military.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a program where you accompany a service member to their final resting place. I recommend, I encourage that people talk to someone. People talk, because trauma comes in many different forms. Doesn't matter what it is. Not everybody deals with the same type of trauma the same way as the person next to them.
Absolutely
What
right.
could affect you may not affect me. What could affect me may not affect you. But it's important that we talk about that type of stuff, because when we internalize, there's a difference between internalizing and assessing. You can try and understand what's going on. There's nothing wrong with that, because you're trying to make sense of something that happened. But when you shut down and you internalize, you bottle that up, you bury it down, you push it down, that's when it becomes a problem. And the
Absolutely.
first person it affects is yourself.
Mm-hmm. And you
And
can't be
then
there for other people when you're down and out. It's like putting on the mask when you're on an airplane. When the oxygen mask drops, you have to put it on yourself first. And that goes for leaders, that goes for subordinates, goes for anybody. You can't
exactly.
go through things on your own, and a lot of people do. And sadly, like a lot of my friends who've gone through things, they have ended their own lives. And I wish that I everyone always wishes, like, it's almost like survivor's guilt. You always wish that you could have seen the signs and recognized what's going on. And I always ask people around me, hey, are you checking out for your friends? Just randomly, I say, are you looking out for your friends? Are they depressed? Are they suicidal? Look out for these signs. If they're acting weird, send a text message to your friend who lives down the street from you, who you haven't talked to in 6 months. Hey man, just checking in. How are you doing? I miss seeing you. That might stop somebody from committing suicide, because you never know what somebody's going through. And in the military, we have a horrible issue, and it's not just bad leadership. It's not just racism. Apparently white supremacy is a big issue in the Navy, which I disagree with. I think the biggest issue we have in the Navy is suicide and sexual assaults. So that was fuck, dude. I wish there was words to express how difficult that was to kind of go through with you. And thank you for opening up. I feel like talking to people is one of the hardest and most helpful things that I've ever done. Talking about things I've experienced in my childhood. I experienced most of my horrible things like right before I left for the Navy, and it was like in like a really quick 3 years with the loss of family members due to murder, getting shot at a lot, getting stabbed a couple of times. Like there's a lot of instances, but I would say it was huge and hurtful for me to get in the Navy and see that people in uniform are pieces of shit, are real pieces of shit, horrible individuals that will ruin somebody's life for any form of self gain, and that's called evil. You know, Tim Kennedy does a good job of describing evil in the podcast with the U.S. Concealed Carry Association, which is a great podcast to listen to for anybody looking to get into self-defense or just talk about what's good and bad. But he describes evil. There's nothing more horrible than being in a military uniform and violating another person's body. You don't deserve to breathe. And I was always with, you know, they say it's bad to wish death on people. Some people need to die. I wish death on anyone who does that type of stuff. And did that, I know it had a huge effect on your life. Are you a sexual assault prevention response person?
Not in official capacity.
Okay.
You've seen a lot of people come talk to me, whether they like me, they don't like me, they don't respect me, whatever the case is. You had people who came to me because they knew if something was wrong, I was the fixer. I was the one who went there to take care of them.
Yeah.
And that's where it was important. So in official capacity, no, but people would still come talk to me. I remember when we came back from that deployment, I made it a point that anytime somebody checked on board, male or female, I would go out with them, not as like in a date or anything like that, but kind of like, hey, let's go to dinner. Let's go grab some dinner. Let me show you around the different areas.
Yeah.
This is where we're going to go, things like that. What do you like to eat? And while we were out and talking, getting to know them, you know, it was important not so much to share that piece of myself with them, but just to remind them, like, look, you're a good person. There's good people. Rely on them. Trust them. If you ever have any problems or something doesn't seem right, say something.
Always.
Make sure that you say something because it's important to stop it, because every voice that's silent when there's a problem encourages that problem to exist.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. When
So
we got back, when we were on deployment, I had 2 sailors in our division approach me and said they didn't want to report it, but they wanted to tell me that they got raped, and they're in our division, and it was really difficult for me to deal with. Really, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to just go and you know, I had my favorite knife, the blue one with the paracord on it. I just wanted to go and shove it straight into their neck and in front of everybody and say this, and cut off their head and say, this is what happens to people who violate my sailors. But there's ways you deal with things and there's ways you don't when you're enlisted. Sadly, they said they didn't want it reported, and they came to me in confidence, and it was difficult for me to subdue my instincts. My
initial reaction, yeah.
My reaction told me violence. We had a sailor under our command that was beat by her boyfriend. I'm pretty sure you might have heard of this one, but she got beat up by her boyfriend, and me and Andy found the marks on her arm where she was being abused. We found bruises on her arm when she rolled up her sleeves. Well, I walked up to her like, hey, why your coveralls roll down your arm? Watch, roll that shit up. I said, wait a second, what the fuck is this? And I called Andy over, and you know, some people just got to get sorted out. In the Navy, we try to handle things in house. If some people just need to get the shit kicked out of them if they think it's okay to beat up women, and that's something that happened. And I'm happy to say it. You know, multiple times he got fucking ran through by me. Some people just think dealing with things in house was a difficult thing for me, because we're supposed to stand for truth, righteousness, and justice, and all these things as sailors. And the command, you know, at the end of the day, we're all just human beings. You know, we got hands and a heart and a face. There's a lot of people who will put a smile on their face when they're meaning to stab you in the back. And I had a difficult time dealing with leadership not taking things seriously that should be taken seriously, like sailors coming to you in confidence saying they want to kill themselves. How do we deal with this? There was a couple instances where we stopped sailors from jumping off the fantail. Like that was a huge instance. There was one sailor who jumped off the port side of the ship, but he was smoking spice, and I don't know what spice. I never smoked spice before. I'm pretty sure it fucking makes you weird. Maybe, I don't know. But and then there was we had sailors go insane on deployment. Chanza, we had. I've never seen a kid that's like 85 pounds soaking wet take on 4 6'2" tall stacked MAs. That was pretty interesting.
That was a very interesting, because I have experienced sailors who've been on spice, bath salts, any type of psychotropic agent. I've seen the effects. Chanza was a textbook case of a psychological break.
Okay.
This is somebody who, I mean, he had his proclivities, he had his eccentricities where he, operated on a different level than everybody else, and he knew it.
Yeah.
But when when that incident happened and he had to get flown off,
I was scared for BM1
Myers,
or for BM1. Which BM1 was it? There's a few BM1s. I've had like 20 BM1s. I think it was BM1. Fucking bald head. He's a chief now. Fucking. I slept right above him. Fuck. What is that? Whatever.
It's Navarro. It's Navarro.
Navarro flew off with him.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, someone flew off with him. Walters, BM1, wait. BMC now.
Yeah,
Walters.
I was gonna say, Walters.
Yeah, Walters flew off with that motherfucker, and I was just terrified. I was like, this guy's gonna get shanked in the airport by this guy. When I saw him holding that egg, and he came to the berthing afterwards, and he looked at me, and I swear I saw something wrong with this guy. I didn't like it. We sprayed hand sanitizer all over where he was sleeping. We threw his mattress over the side of the ship. Like we were pretty drastic about it, but he said he was the devil in the flesh. So I was like, okay, well, goodbye, devil.
No, I remember having to strip his rack and inventory everything and back it up for when we got back into port to get it back to him. And yeah, it just did. Some people, some people, even through the screening process, some people are just not made to be in the military.
Oh God, yeah, I thought he was gonna get a gun and start shooting people. By the way, Mr. Walters explained that. I was shook because I was right outside when I heard the commotion, and then I saw them drag him out. They like OC'd him, and it was not helping. He was just eyes wide open, violent, and then he told the captain of the ship that his name is the devil, and that the captain's name was Chanza. I was like, what the hell is going on here? After he was sedated twice.
Yeah.
And he was not going out. That is,
no.
I think we might have had a classic case of the devil showed up, but his mattress is in the water somewhere near Iran. That's all I know.
I'm pretty sure that thing sank by now because it does absorb water just fine.
Hopefully, man. Oh, God, I don't want anything anywhere near anybody ever again. Get the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it. Well, shit, dude. Yeah, that was definitely an interesting deployment. I learned a lot from it. I learned a lot from the people. But it was the craziness was pretty wild. What's the craziest shit you've ever seen in the Navy? I've always tried to ask this to people.
The craziest thing I've ever seen in the Navy. Okay. There's a couple things. One, there's a couple of people I met. There was 2 people. One of them was in my division, and one was in another division from my first command. They're still married to this day to each other.
Okay.
I've never seen a relationship from a ship last.
Oh,
and this is one of the very few times where it actually stuck. Like, I was so happy for them. There was a storm off the coast of Thailand in 2001. It was a small ship. It was a tin can. We had a barge alongside. I had to wear a harness, and I had to get pulled up the side of the ship. Couldn't even climb up the ACOM ladder because of how bad the waves were.
Oh no, it can be bad.
Fukushima, 2011, Japan. I was involved with that. That's actually one of the things that I'm currently dealing with now.
What happened in
Um,
Fukushima?
the reactor that went critical.
Oh yes, yeah. You don't want to be around that. Yeah, that could be. Oh god.
I did. I went through
Oh
6
god.
different radiation plumes.
Did you have
I
you been
currently
treated?
no. That's what I'm. That's I have medical conditions right now that are affecting me
Oh my
because
god,
of that.
that's horrible, man. Oh fuck.
That's kind of literally kind of this is how my career ends. This is it for me because of this,
I'm
and
sorry to
it's
hear that.
inoperable.
Jesus
It's better to me
Christ.
than somebody else, honestly. Because as much as anybody will try and argue that fact with me, nobody can sit here and tell me that a bad person would get it. I would never wish this on anybody else. I would never wish that it was taken out of me and give it to somebody else because it could actually be given to a good person who didn't deserve it.
I see.
And I'm not saying that I do. I'm just saying that there are better people than me out there. And if I wish that I didn't have it and that somebody else did, who's to say that they're not to get it because of me?
Damn, man. I have a friend that whose parents weren't around, or his grandparents were around during and parents were around during Chernobyl. He was actually born with birth
Mhm.
defects. His heart is not right, and uh, I'm always scared that one day I'm not going to see his funny Facebook's posts about the most ridiculous shit, the funniest tweets, and because one
Mhm.
day he is just going to drop dead. There's some serious things wrong with him, and it's terrifying to hear that, and it breaks my heart to hear as well. I think that
Mhm.
it's one of those things that comes with military servitude, and I think you'd agree that's part of the game. That's part of the game.
Mhm.
You signed up for this. You signed up to do whatever
Mhm.
the country's bidding was in the name of the United States Navy. And
Mhm.
a sailor has no home other than the sea.
Mhm.
And I hope that fuck, dude, there's no way to say this. I'm just sorry that happened, and I wish it wasn't you. I wish it was some scumbag that I'm talking that I would be talking to right now that this happened to. That really sucks.
I there's definitely some people who were affected right after the event. Or actually, I remember there were people who were flown off during and then after the fact, and it's still continuing to affect us to this day.
Mm.
So I'm just hope I don't I've been approached about participating in what's going on with that. Honestly, I'm not interested in that in doing that. I don't want anything out of it. I don't want any money out of it. The Navy's been taking care of me. They've been making sure I'm getting the care that I need to take care of everything, the meds that I need to function on a daily basis. I don't need anything. I don't want anything except accountability. That's the only thing I've ever asked for. Like somebody messed up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We, you know, this was a natural phenomenon where a tsunami hit a man-made structure that was never made to withstand a tsunami
Mhm.
ever. But the fact of what we did on that ship multiple times that put us all at risk, that's my problem.
I see.
Because I've I've had naysayers who were like, "Oh, well, you know, you weren't expecting you weren't supposed to anything more than what you would get on a daily being out in the sun for a day."
Yeah.
Oh, wrong. When you're
Bullshit.
removing
That's
pieces of equipment
bullshit.
from this, well, no, but that's I get there's people within this field that are doing that, but when I'm watching you scan somebody and their little machine is going off, like bells and whistles are going off, this person has to strip a layer of clothing just to go to another station to get scanned again. Bells and whistles going off, having to strip another layer. Don't sit here and tell me that it was a day of radiation you would get from the sun.
Did you have to go through the regular like we talk about SCBR training is what we get in the Navy where CBR training is when we get the chemical, biological, radiological shit. Did you have to go through the wash station and that they pressure wash you basically and your skin basically is all fucked?
There was no, there's no pressure washing, but the sailors, most of them were air department. They were the ones who actually got the brunt of it. Because they were up on deck the entire time between the snow that was coming down that was radiated, between the 6 different
Jesus.
plumes we went through. You had birds, helicopters that were going out there on humanitarian missions, providing food and water. We were donating our own personal toiletries, clothes, food from the mess decks, things like that. We were donating that to the people of Japan to help these families who were affected by this, who were uprooted from their homes for generations
Mhm.
because of this radiological event. We were donating all this stuff, and then the air guys would come back, land, and their birds were flaming hot with radiation.
Jesus Christ. This
And
sounds
there's
like a
no way
nightmare.
and that's why I say I don't blame anybody for what happened. I just blame how we conducted ourselves after the fact.
Hmm.
Because instead of doing the right thing by not rushing into it, but properly analyzing how this is going to be approached, we went straight into something and risked everybody on board that ship.
That's
And
horrible, dude.
it's still causing problems to this day.
Damn. I'm so just amazed that that's not a part of like serious naval history. That should be like a moment where everybody should have got a medal of heroism, because whether people want to admit it or not, this stuff everything catches up to you.
Mhm.
And I'm sad
And
to
that's
hear
true.
it's catching up right now.
Yeah.
All you guys should have got it. There should be a special medal made for the people who risked a portion of their life, and sometimes their life, depending on who it is, to the situation. Because this is not, that goes above and beyond military servitude. You guys could have looked at anytime you guys could have looked at that and said, fuck that. Nope.
Mhm.
And you did it anyways. And that selfless act deserves
Mhm.
recommendation or commendation.
Honestly, the Prime Minister of Japan, when he came out after everything was said and done, when we were done with assisting the people of Japan, when he actually flew out to the ship to thank us personally and then invite us into Sasebo, that meant more to me than anything else. Any medal, any amount of everything that the Navy could have done or would have done, nothing meant more to me than what that man did by coming out there. But and then the last crazy thing I ever experienced or dealt with in the Navy was I can't believe I'm gonna mention this. Was an issue where we didn't get a chance to pull into port because we had a
Oh, I think I know this story. Yes, I got a full detailed description of whose fault that was. And oh man.
there was a lot of failures. If we're talking about the same thing, there's a lot of failures on a lot of levels that took place during this event. The reason why this stands out to me more than anything else is because the captain at the time I remember he was standing on L3. I was the coxswain. I was the primary coxswain. Um, we had the divers. We talking about the same thing?
I think so, because the captain
Okay.
was a line handler for about 5 seconds while
No, he wasn't.
no, on the stern dock incident.
There was a stern dock incident, but he never put hands on line. That never happened. There was the first lieutenant was there. I was there. There was a good group of us. You mentioned 8. I know he was there with me.
Yes.
And so was a couple other guys. But we got our hands on the mooring line and we were trying to pull it back up on the stern dock, which was like in the idea of it was the right idea, but it wasn't just so much that this line was just there. It was wrapped because we tried pulling it up, wasn't working.
Mhm.
So we stopped.
Isn't there like
Divers
a cone right before the props? There's a cone, and that I think how a guy explained to me that it was wrapped around the cone and over the actual not over the shaft, but over the actual prop.
No, it was, but it was all around the shaft because we found out after we pulled into port that it had already started to backspin the prop.
Okay.
It actually started to backspin, pulling the prop off because they had to go when we pulled into port. The divers had to go back under to get it reattached, like to tighten it back up because they had to shut down and lock that shaft because of it.
Oh yeah.
But basically what had happened was the divers came out. They had like their little underwater vehicle. They went to assess it, looked at it. It was nothing that the robot could do, because if it was just draped over, then it would have been, the robot could have just gone in there and fixed it, honestly. But that wasn't the case. What had happened was because as soon as the line hit the water, it was being dragged, because it didn't come down in sections. It was the whole line. So it got trailed, and because it was getting trailed, it was sitting on the surface. As soon as that end went down, it hit the prop, and then that's when it started getting chopped up, because it wasn't the whole line.
I see.
But it got chopped up, wrapped around. So the robot went down there, couldn't do anything. Divers flew back to the ship, had their gear. So I had two civilian divers, and there's something I want to bring up after this fact. Two divers, they were civilian, they went in the water. I was the primary coxswain. We had issues where they were still pumping CHT. We had to wait for that. We were dealing with swells. And then I had the captain. Okay, so it was supposed to be the outgoing captain plus the captain, the PCO, who was just taking over. The XO, a lot of the HODs, a lot of the command was standing there watching. And well, what was funny about that was there was people standing there yelling, telling me what to do.
Oh yeah. Can they drive the boat? No.
Stupid. And that was what they were trying to do. They were trying to backseat drive. And there came a point where, and the captain, and this is where I'm not proud of what I did that day, because I had a break of professionalism, but they were asking like, how come you put the diver in the water? Put the diver in the water. They're trying to push me to get this done. And finally I snapped. I turned around and I said, shut the fuck up. I'm not putting a diver in the water if it's not safe.
Yeah, goddamn right.
We have CHT in the water. We have swells. I'm going to do this fucking right. Shut the fuck up. I don't even know who I said it to.
Everybody. All of them. Yep.
Well, whoever was trying to bark orders at me. There was silence. We finally got to a comfortable place. The CHT was shut off. Divers went down, handled their business, did what they did. Engineering locked the shaft, got the divers in, recovered the boat. Everything said and done at that point. All in all, probably took about 3 hours.
Yep.
It from when it was first reported in first thing in the morning. So when we were done, well, no, I take that back, because we did have to stay overnight. It took all in all about 3 hours. I got contacted by a sailor, and when I say I was contacted by a sailor, I in no way was friends or close or even talk to the sailor in a professional or in a personal capacity. Like, we never had that type of heart-to-heart relationship.
Yeah.
He contacted me because he's actually a Navy diver now, and he messaged me because one of his instructors was in the boat when they went down there. And he said, and I guess from what the sailor was telling me, the instructor brings this up every class, but he goes, because of the situation, because of how everything was being conducted, between the line being wrapped around, people trying to bark orders, things like that. He goes, this is a guy who, there was a coxswain there, a BM1, who immediately took control of the situation and did the right thing for the safety of the divers. And from what that instructor said, the civilian, he said, if anybody deserved a medal that day, it was the driver.
Well, absolutely.
And
you have to take control as a coxswain. I remember I've cussed out so many officers when I was driving in the boat. There's this times where they give me ridiculous instruction. I was like, sir, I said, ma'am, so you don't have positional authority. You do not have human being authority. You don't have shit here. Shut your mouth. You're going to jeopardize everyone's safety. And I used to say, belay that instruction. Do not do that shit. Get the fuck back in the boat. Do not do this. Like, there's times where we went alongside the ship when there was green shit oozing out of the side of it. And I'm in the boat. I got like 15-foot swells. I got the best coxswain, Coley, in the driving that bitch. I got a couple nukes in there. I got the Chang with me. And I'm like, and the Chang is having me. I said, don't send the nuke anywhere near this. Give me this thing. So I shoved my hand in this bucket to collect a sample of this green oozing nuclear stuff into my hand, but I got my arm smashed like 5 times in between the boat, the boat and the ship, and it hurt like a bitch, and I was nursing that thing for a while, but I got the green stuff all over me. It was all bad. I tried to wash it off in the ocean. There was no luck. I'm pretty sure I have some type of some type of nuclear fluid is on me. So that's great.
I was gonna say you look a little swollen.
Yes,
It must have had
you know
some
what?
type
I'm gonna get some more of that
effect.
shit. Yeah.
Must have been an
But
allergic reaction for you to swell up like that.
it was a good one. It was about 75 pounds swell up. I like it. So yeah, a lot of crazy stuff that happened in the Navy, but ultimately it was a great experience for me. I don't look back at it with negativity at all because I did my best.
Mhm.
Times where I feel like even now I look back, I could have tried a little less at that moment, but would I be the same
Mhm.
person if I did? Probably not. I went against the grain. I did the right thing when I was supposed to do the right thing. And even if it meant that I lost a whole lot of friends, I lost those friends, and I did it with just servitude to my country. Unfortunately for them, they weren't mature enough to understand why I was doing the things I do. And that's okay. I don't judge other
Mhm.
people, but I
Mhm.
did my best. I advanced swimmingly. I would advance faster if I was joining the Navy 6 days early. I would advance a little faster, but unfortunately, you miss tests, you miss it. Oh well. But I
Yeah.
feel like I did a great job.
You
Just being
did.
the best
You
version
have.
of
You
me.
still do.
Thank
You
you.
still do though.
I just want to embody that same stature that I had in the Navy with what I do now. With my
Mhm.
mechanic, I tell them all the time, "Hey man, anytime you tell me to do something, just tell me to do it. I'll get it done. You don't have to yell, don't have to any of that shit. We just get it done." And that's why we have a great relationship. We're just a couple of guys, right? But I think it's important for everybody to, if they are thinking about getting in the Navy or they're in the Navy, to have a
Mhm.
positive outlook on it, because you're what makes the Navy. No one said, okay, we're going to put this shitty leader in charge of you. That person made a decision to be a bad leader. No one said
Mhm.
you're going to be stationed with a crew that's already set up and you're going to show up
Mhm.
halfway through deployment. No one said that. It just happens.
Mhm.
And we all can kind of connect on that level and just be positive human beings, but more importantly, great sailors. A great sailor
Mhm.
is made up of the type of person that's beyond the uniform. And
Mhm.
like I said before, when you take off that uniform, there's a lot of pieces of shit in the Navy. And
Yeah.
it's up for us to sort out that bad leadership and find out how to not be that, like you have done in your career. And you've done a great job. What's it like? What's it like advancing in the Navy for you? What do you feel about it?
I feel that we definitely have okay, so I'm going to approach this from two different ways. On an outside point of view, we definitely have a higher, more structured ranking system when it comes to advancement than any other branch.
Mhm.
Because when you're an E1 to an E3, technically in any other branch from E1 to E5, there's a lot of muddled, like a lot of gray area between the ranks. But
Mhm.
when you're in the Navy, E1 to E3, that's set. E4 to E6, that's set.
Mhm.
E7 to E9, set, and then officer set, right?
Yeah.
Now, on the internal side, on the inside, I think I've seen the good and the bad of the advancements because I've seen people who just couldn't test. They were like me. I joined with the 31 ASVAB. They couldn't test for crap. I can't test for crap. But when the right leadership was there to make sure that it was being done properly, things went according to the way it was supposed to be. Took the test, passed it, evals, everything supported my advancement. I've seen people who advanced that deserved it. I've seen people who didn't advance that deserved it.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh man. That is,
it wasn't for anything but opportunity and chance. You've got 100 BMSMs across the Navy. I'm just being very general here. You got 100 BSMs going for E4, but you only have 4 spots to advance them. So how do you properly choose? You don't. You let the system do it because the system does what it's supposed to do, and it takes out the human element of favoritism.
yes, you remove the emotion. Just like when you're making a decision, you cut off all other avenues. It's one of my favorite words, decision. So
Mhm.
yeah.
So now, is there room for improvement? Absolutely. I am not smart enough to identify what that is. That's why I've never brought it up before now, because I could tell you, yeah, it could be better. But if you were to ask me how, I would give you probably the blankest stare you'll ever see in your entire life. I'm not smart enough to figure that out, to give that. But there's somebody out there who has the idea, who has said it, but because for whatever reason, either they told the wrong person or they're afraid to say something, that idea has not been put out there yet.
I see. Yeah, I've always found it
We'll get
really
there.
easy to advance. I found it super easy to advance. You study,
Mhm.
you advance. You don't study, or you don't understand and ask questions when you have a question. If you don't understand it and you're just reading,
Mhm.
then you're
Mhm.
not going to be as successful at that rate. I had the manuals on a tablet. I used to wake up at
Mhm.
2 a.m. every day and study till
I
time to get
remember
going,
that.
right?
I
People say,
remember that.
people always will tell me, dude, you crazy ass motherfucker. No wonder you made it. It was simple to me.
Yeah.
You want to make more money? Why are you not studying? You're out there spending
Yeah.
money, drinking at Pizza Hut down the way, right on the pier.
Well, that's
No.
because you believed in what you were earning.
Mhm.
You weren't expecting it to be handed to you.
Oh,
You earned
yes.
it. You worked for it.
Mhm.
And that's where there's a difference. I believe that there's a breakdown, a fundamental breakdown in how people conduct themselves. You have people who feel that they deserve things,
Mhm.
who feel that they're entitled to it. First and foremost, unless you're putting in the work, you're not entitled to anything.
Absolutely right.
Either you earn it or you don't. That's and maybe that's just my old school black and white version of looking at it.
That's the American way.
But that's exactly what we were founded on.
Mhm.
Was the idea to earn, the idea to work for, to bust our backs, look back and say, I earned this. Because how many people have ever been handed something and look back and gone, I have that.
Yeah, I really get irritated when I uh get things that I feel like I didn't earn. I feel bad about myself, and I want to feel good about
Mhm.
myself. And to feel good about myself, I have to work towards whatever goal I'm doing. I feel like I'm a goal chaser. I set a new platform with this fitness thing. I've won both
Mhm.
the shows I've gone to. I look forward to winning the next ones in the future. But when I'm done with bodybuilding, it's going to be jujitsu, because I've always
Mhm.
felt so grounded in martial arts, with the discipline, the hyper focus on one thing, not getting
Mhm.
choked out. I think it's really helpful.
Kind of important,
It's kind of important. You got one goal, and I think when people have a plan B, they don't give their plan A everything. And
Mhm.
a lot of people get in the Navy and they say, "Well, I could advance, but I'd rather just not study and ask somebody else all the questions and try to get a study sheet." I had the audio recordings on my phone where I would read my questions that are in the manual. The manual
Mhm.
literally gives you questions. I read the
Mhm.
NSTM stuff. I passed down around all this information from a BM2 on a different ship, who was like 40, who could never advance. So he made all these because he had
Mhm.
dyslexia, kind of like me.
Mhm.
If I'm studying and I have dyslexia and I supersede, I sprint past everybody that I joined the Navy with, it's not my fault. It's your fault
Mhm.
for not studying. And I got a lot of negative bullshit from that. And I finally started telling people, I said, hey man, you were fucking off when I was studying. Don't be mad at me because you suck. And
Yeah,
you do suck. You do suck if you're making excuses for not succeeding when you didn't apply yourself. Everyone should
exactly.
apply yourself, and it makes you so much better for it.
Mhm.
But there's also that one chance that, some people just do not have the good luck with the quotas and everything, and they have studied and they just didn't make it, and that really
Yeah.
sucks too. But
But honestly, if they're not chasing the rank, if that's not what they're going for, if their goal is to be successful in a career, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to go for the next rank. That just means you have to make the difference that most people refuse to do. Whether it's passing down a piece of knowledge, whether it's keeping somebody alive because you were there when nobody else was, or by reporting something, if somebody tells you something in confidence that they're afraid to say anything out of repercussion and you say it for them to make a change, that's making a difference. But when you're chasing a rank just for the soul of making extra money, hey, honestly, good on you. That's not why I advanced. I advanced because I believed in the job. I believed that I wanted to be the best sailor for everybody I was working with. Whether it was above or below me, that's the only thing I ever focused on. That's the reason why I believe in reading in every instruction, every regulation, because I wanted to know what others didn't. So when they needed it, I would tell them what they could or couldn't do and where to reference it. So that way they can go verify, trust but verify.
absolutely, absolutely, trust but verify. That's a great lesson that the Navy shared with me. Jesus Christ. Real
Yeah.
quick, it's one of my last questions because I want to start wrapping
Sure.
this thing up. I'm pretty sure anyone who's listened to this already by now knows the answer to this question. What legacy do you want to leave for other people? When people think of you, obviously this is an anonymous podcast, but when people see you in the face and they remember who you are from your previous experience, what thing do you want to leave with them? What just powerful thing do you want to instill in everybody that you meet? Because I know you have that thought already.
Empathy,
Empathy.
compassion. Toxic leaders is not just somebody who cares about themselves. Toxic leadership is not just somebody um, who just goes against the grain, against every Navy regulation or any type of rule at all, law or whatever. Toxic leadership starts at the very basic fundamental of not caring. And when you don't care about somebody or something, you've already set yourself up and everybody around you for failure because you're exuding that and telling somebody it's okay to think that way.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I would say the one legacy is I would love for people to care more about what's going on around them, about doing the right thing. Plain and simple.
Absolutely, brother. I really felt that because that's something that you definitely share with me. I remember our last conversation before I left for the greater beyond that is where I'm living now and my future life outside of the military. It shook me to the core. As I walked out of the ABI, I was crying, not tears of sadness, but tears of just emotion because I never had someone speak life into me like that before I was going to start a new venture. And you told me that I was honor bound. You told me that you told me exactly what I was trying to show the world that I wanted to be. Not that I was, because it takes time to walk into the shoes and the goals you have. But you told me exactly the thing I wanted to leave with the world. And I could not thank you enough for that because it's carried me through some tough times. The word you said to me, I'm not going to try to quote it word for word because I'll probably butcher it. But this weird, if I could describe it in a color, it would be like a baby blue with a flash of like gold. I always try to describe things in colors because I felt majestic after you telling me the things that I wanted to achieve were achieved. I got this check in the box that I was looking for the entirety of me signing up for the Navy, me being in the Navy, everything about it. And it was huge for me, man. I really appreciate that. Could not thank you enough for that.
And believe me, the pleasure was mine getting a chance to not just get a chance to talk to and get to know a young man like yourself, but somebody who reminded me on a daily basis of what right looked like, to do what was right, no matter the cost. Because it's easy, as soon as you start putting on that rank, people are going to start respecting the rank, but they lose respect for the person. And you were that type of sailor who reminded everybody around them that it's not about the rank, it's about the person. And so believe me, it's been an absolute blast. Everything that you've done has left a legacy. Everything that you've said, I remember sailors were still talking about it to the day that I was leaving the ship myself. They still remember BM2 Lowry, and they were talking about the stuff that you were teaching them and telling them. And that's
a lot of it was just
that,
some crazy shit. A lot of it was just off the bat crazy shit.
It was, but it was a learning lesson that they took to the positive instead of being negative, saying that this was okay to behave that way.
I see, and I'm glad to hear that as well. Now I don't personally smoke weed now, but I think the first day that I showed up back at home and I was officially out of the Navy, I celebrated. I lit up a joint and I FaceTimed BM2 now or BM1 now, Dino. And he was in front of division and I said, show me the division. I said, I miss y'all. And I sparked up a joint and I said, my time is done. And I said, make sure none of you guys do this because you're going to get kicked out. And I named everybody who they knew who got kicked out. So I tried to leave it with one last comedy-based lesson. So that, but I can't smoke weed. I just don't enjoy it. I'd rather just be sober and clear-minded.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Whiskey,
but
that's it.
Yeah.
Well, I really cannot thank you enough for just opening up, especially the stuff about your dad and about your your terrible experience with some things and your positive experience with other things. One thing I can capitalize on is that you always left this energy. You know, even when you were going through tough times, you left the energy behind you, but you're so self-aware, not self-conscious, but self-aware of the effect you have on other people. And
Mhm.
the word I heard most about from you in the Navy was the word sailors, not sailor as referring to yourself, but sailors referring to other people. And you exuded this standard of not me, but we. And that is something that I'm going to take with me to my grave. I can't appreciate it enough. That's a special thing. That it's not me, it's we. And I thank you for that. And I also thank you for your time today. I hope anybody that listens to this can, resonate with everything you talked about. Hopefully not all things, hopefully, but people can get some perspective from the negative and know that they're not alone if it did happen to them, because I know a bunch of people who've have had happen to them, and it's always tough to get them to talk to me about it, even though I've shared some similar experiences. It's still tough for me to talk about, but hearing you open up makes me want to open up. It makes me want to decompress and start the healing process, because it's about 17 years overdue. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on. Of course, this is going to remain anonymous, so I'm not going to say your name, but I love you, brother.
I love you too, bro.
Thank you, everybody, for listening through to this point. I don't know if you caught on every detail, but obviously this man is a giant among really, really short people. I serve with him, and I wish I could say his name. He wants to remain anonymous, but this is the type of person that I look up to. He's become one of my heroes. Between this conversation, I thought I knew him. I really did not. And after this conversation, we probably talked for another 45 minutes about the things he wasn't very good about him or cool with him releasing this information. I cannot say how important it is for people who haven't served to understand what true American servitude is to their country. This man is literally going through the fight of his life. And to some extent, it's untreatable after given this time over there at Fukushima. I don't know a better way to describe this person, but as a true American, a patriot, a great human being. He understands his flaws, and he's done his best to work away from that. And this is the type of person that anybody can strive to attempt to embody when you think about military service in the United States Navy. There's not enough medals to give this guy to a person that he is, and the type of impact he had on me is drastic. As soon as this was over, I went in the other room and I just cried a little bit. Honestly, I'm not going to beat around the bush, but it's really difficult to put in words the effect somebody can have on you. It's so emotional, so positive, so drastic that it changed the fibers of who you are as a man, as a husband, as a father in the future. It's really difficult for me to say that I'm being the best me after listening to this conversation. So I hope you hear it. I hope you guys heard it, and I hope you guys resonated with some of the things he said. If he can't, be named for this purpose. So if you want to say anything to him after reading this, please get on my Facebook page, Off the Deep End with Eddie Lowry. It should be up on Facebook or Instagram. Just DM me and I'll take a picture of it and I'll screenshot and send it to him. I'm sure he'd love the feedback. And this is the type of person that I would thank multiple times for the rest of my life. I'm going to always tell him thank you for your service. He's a great human being. So thank you everybody for tapping in. Hopefully this has not shaken you to the core too bad. If you know anybody who's struggling with mental health, suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, anyone who's been sexually assaulted, and they are hesitant on getting to help psychologically or mentally or however you want to describe it, please do encourage them. Just be there for them the best you can, because you never know who's struggling through these times as I did not. Thank you guys for listening, and look forward to the next one.